They say grief is a burden. But here in Bristol, with the cold light slicing across the Georgian stonework of Clifton, I found that grief is an absence, a space you clean out, like a room prepared for a new structure. Julian thought that space was a void for him to fill with new ventures, new women, and most significantly, a brand new Range Rover purchased entirely at my expense. He was wrong. I was the architect, and I was in the process of deconstructing his existence, brick after brick, without the sound of a single hammer. The scene unfolded in our living room in the geometric curve of the Georgian crescent, an afternoon where the sea dampness clung to the window panes. I was lying down, and this time the weight was not metaphorical. My heart was galloping, then stalling in a terrifying way, like a frantic drum played by a child. The pain was a twisted blade beneath my sternum. Julian was across the room, hunched over his antique writing desk, his posture radiating a deep, dismissive irritation. "Julian," I tried to speak. The sentence came out fractured, a whisper that couldn't compete with the sharp, rapid click of his mouse. He sighed, not a sigh of concern, but of pure exasperation, the kind you reserve for a piece of software that is malfunctioning. He didn't look up. His eyes remained locked on the pale blue glow of his screen. There was always a transaction, a deal, an urgency more paramount than my living reality. "What is it, Alara? Is it your throat again?" He asked the question without waiting for an answer, already bored by the possibility. "No, my chest, it's like it's caught in a vice, Julian. I can't seem to draw a deep breath." The silence that followed was heavier than the vice itself. It was the silence of willful absence. He finally pivoted in his leather chair, the leather giving a tired, protesting groan. His eyes swept the room, the walls, the expensive carpet, everything but my face. He was calculating the cost of an interruption. "Look, darling, I'm on a very sensitive call with New York. I cannot hang up. If it's an anxiety attack, and I am certain that it is, just try to walk it off. Go into the garden." I wanted to laugh, but the effort might have cracked my ribs. "I don't think this is anxiety," I insisted, my voice thin and reedy. I reached out a hand toward him, a gesture of pure, pathetic need that I instantly regretted. He looked at my hand as if it were an unappetizing mushroom. He didn't move. "Alara, be reasonable. Bristol's A&E wards are saturated. If you truly can't breathe, call 999. But please, no drama." Then he turned back to his screen. The familiar, sickening click of the mouse. The confirmation. He had chosen omission. He had chosen his deal, his screen, his comfort. He had left me there alone, with a pain that screamed danger and a silence that howled betrayal. Julian always thought betrayal was about Miss Thompson from Cardiff, whose scent of cloyingly sweet vanilla and expensive leather had started to turn my stomach on his tailored shirts. He was wrong. Betrayal was always about the money, always. And he had just committed two separate, distinct crimes in the space of 3 minutes, the crime of omission and the crime of the act. I closed my eyes. The pain was receding, leaving a vast, oceanic weariness in its wake. But with the retreat of the physical terror came a sharp, crystalline clarity. I wasn't dead, but the woman I was, the woman who believed in him, was utterly gone. That woman would have begged. I merely observed. It was 2 months ago, actually, that I first smelt it. The faint, unmistakable odor of new car leather, mingling with his usual cologne, clinging to the lining of his overcoat. Julian hadn't changed his car. I'd casually asked him, and he'd dismissed it as the scent from a client's showroom. But my interior designer's instinct, the one that spots a millimeter misalignment in a kitchen cabinet, told me otherwise. I waited until he was away on a spurious business trip to Berlin. I went to his laptop, the one he guarded so religiously. Julian had never been truly clever about passwords. He always used the name of our first dog, Barnaby, a Cairn Terrier I had wept over for days when he died, and Julian had seemingly forgotten within 2 weeks. The password worked. I found the file he'd hidden deep within a nested directory under a mundane folder named Accounts Payable Q4, Project White Ghost. Inside, There were the scans, the shocking, calculated proof. Documents for an £85,000 car loan for a brand new white Range Rover. But the borrower's name wasn't Julian Vance. It was Alara Vance. My name, my grossly forged signature, my driver's license, scanned and digitally altered, my bank statements, used as proof of my superior credit score. Julian, burdened by a miserable credit history, a casualty of several reckless ventures, was systematically destroying my financial standing to secure his own escape vehicle. He was preparing to leave me with a colossal debt and a severely damaged credit rating, the financial equivalent of a bomb ticking in the foundation of our life. It wasn't merely infidelity. It was cold, calculated, financial violence. I felt no rage, only the icy calm of a structural engineer examining a critically failed beam. I photographed every single page, every clause, every line of the usurious interest rate agreement, storing the evidence in an encrypted folder deep within my design tablet, hidden beneath the files for a major Georgian renovation project. That evening, I sat by the window, observing the sunset paint the surface of the river Avon in shades of sickly rose and gray. He came back, oblivious, talking about the importance of letting go of little things. He was talking about my suspicions, but he was talking about his conscience. The cardiac pain had faded to a dull, throbbing ache. The biological panic had yielded to strategic panic. Julian put on his coat, visibly relieved to be escaping the drama. He grabbed his sleek leather briefcase, air-kissed the space above my head, and was gone. The heavy thud of the front door echoed through the silent house. I gave it 5 minutes. 5 minutes to ensure he was on the road with the physical proof of his crime. I reached for my phone. Not $9.99. Not yet. The first call was to Eleanor Davies, my solicitor, based in Bath, known for securing emergency non-molestation and freezing orders faster than anyone else in the Southwest. Eleanor, it's Alara. I have a case of aggravated marital fraud and failure to assist a person in peril. I laid out the facts: the ignored cardiac crisis, aggravated neglect, and the identity theft for the car loan. Where is he, Alara? Her voice, always low, sharp, and entirely professional. He is driving the Range Rover. He is en route to Bath or possibly Cardiff to meet his mistress. The purchase is fresh. The money is still in transit. We have to strike now. Eleanor didn't waste a second. She immediately contacted the Avon and Somerset Police Fraud Division, not the local constabulary. She filed a swift preliminary report for theft by deception and felony identity fraud, explicitly stating that the asset purchased via fraud, the vehicle, was currently being used by the perpetrator. The urgency of the fraud and the flight risk justified the rapid response. We have a 2-hour window, Ilara. If he's caught in possession of the fraudulently acquired goods, it's a clear case of in flagrante delicto. That car is your leverage. The next call, the most critical, was to the National Fraud and Cybercrime Reporting Center and, more importantly, the Disputes Department of my bank. My name is Alara Vance. I am reporting identity theft. My husband, Julian Vance, has secured an $85,000 car loan using my identity. The wire transfer to the dealership is pending. I demand you freeze it. I am emailing you the crime reference number and a letter from my solicitor detailing the fraud. The bank official, confronted with the rapid, professional, and high-value claim, hesitated, then caved. I sent the supporting evidence and Eleanor Davies's letter. Within 15 minutes, the wire transfer to the car dealership was irrevocably blocked. Julian was driving an expensive piece of metal that, legally, belonged to no one, and the $85,000 debt he'd tried to dump on me had vanished into banking limbo. It was then I felt the thrill. I hadn't just stopped a payment. I had canceled his exit. Only after securing the legal and financial parameters did I call 999. My chest still ached terribly, but now I knew I would live to pay the bill. I believe I had a cardiac incident an hour ago. My husband refused to call for help and left me alone. The ambulance arrived, its gentle siren wailing softly on the ancient paving stones of Clifton. On the way to the Royal Bristol Infirmary, I meticulously detailed Julian's lack of action to the paramedics, ensuring they noted in their report that he had knowingly and deliberately failed to assist. Negligence, they called it. Felony omission, I knew. 2 hours later, I was in a hospital bay. The pain had solidified into a heavy, bitter exhaustion. I looked at the time, 6:30 p.m. Eleanor called back. Her voice was quiet, professional, yet underscored with a profound satisfaction. "Alara, he's in custody." "Where?" "Just off the M4 motorway, heading towards Swindon. He was pulled over for speeding. When the police ran the plate, the alert on the vehicle immediately flagged. Since the loan was frozen, the car was essentially stolen property. He panicked. The moment the police questioned him about the ownership papers, he fell apart. The police initially detained him for the vehicle and the fraud. But Eleanor had instantly layered in the report of failure to assist, a separate, serious criminal offense that instantly elevated the entire case. Julian was in a cell, not for a messy divorce dispute, but for criminal fraud and omission. I spent one night in the hospital, mostly observing. I refused all his attempts to contact me. I wanted him to understand that he could no longer access me. I wanted him to be preoccupied with questions that all began with, "Why did you let your wife die?" The divorce was a cruel formality. The undeniable proof of fraud and failure to assist rendered Julian's lawyer speechless. I secured a divorce on grounds of exclusive fault, which allowed me to immediately strip him of any marital benefits concerning the house and our assets. His name was expunged from the property deeds, but it was the financial coup de grace that tasted the coldest. Julian hadn't just damaged my solvency, he had compromised his own. Because I had acted so quickly, the loan was formally repudiated by me, the victim of the identity theft. The debt was wiped from my record. But the incident was transferred to Julian, the known fraudster. He was blacklisted. The credit agencies do not forgive financial crime. His name is now linked to the most severe entries on the UK credit register. 5, 7 years, perhaps longer, where Julian Vance, the man who adored quick deals and new Range Rovers, couldn't borrow a penny, open a business account, or even rent a suitable flat without paying 6 months up front. His name, his financial identity, was dead. When he finally managed to reach me, after his release on bail, his voice was choked with a mixture of disbelief and fury. "You've ruined me, my name, my reputation. Do you know what it's like to be red flagged? I can't function." I was sitting on the very sofa where he had left me to die, sipping Earl Grey. The air was cool, the weak Bristol sunlight filtering through the window, highlighting the dust motes dancing in the air. "I didn't ruin your name, Julian. I canceled his name. The minute you signed a loan application as me, you made your name the property of my lawyers and my bank. The minute you left me for a call from New York, you made your liberty the property of the law. You had no right." "Yes, Julian, I had the right to press charges. I had the right to live, and I exercised both of those rights in your absence." I hung up. The silence returned, but this time it was the silence of victory, not abandonment. Julian sought to eliminate me to move forward. I let him live, but I eliminated everything that allowed him to move forward. I really thought he was smart, but he was just an opportunist. And an opportunist, when confronted with a well-executed plan, is simply too slow. Destruction is the art of inverse architecture. And Julian is now a financial ruin, a ghost with no credit in the elegant streets of Bristol. Turns out my heart survived. His life didn't. If this story resonates with the quiet tension you seek, stay. There is always another truth lurking just out of sight. Subscribe before the next confession finds you.